Hi guys, this is Under the Canopy and this is chat number 6, and we are talking about the will of God and what that means, what that looks like. And we have a special guest, Stephane Humphries.
Hello.
She flew all the way from Guatemala just to chat with Lauren and I today. So we're just so blessed to have her. Thank you, Stephane, for coming in.
Thanks for asking me to be here.
So Stephanie's just gonna share about how God called her to the mission field and what that looks like to follow God's voice and the will of God. So take it away.
Right. Well, I feel like this is a topic that applies to everyone. You know, everyone has a specific calling and a specific purpose on their life that God has for you. It's unique and it's different for each person.
Yeah.
So I feel like, well, this is something that, you know, everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share my story, how I came to be in Guatemala and on the mission field. And it really took me just being open to the Lord, as anyone needs to be when they want to know His will. But I feel like oftentimes we view God's will as this huge, like, larger than life thing. We complicate it when really it's very simple. And the Lord wants to reveal His will to us more than we even want to know it.
Right.
You know, because like I said, He has a very specific will for everyone. About 8 years ago, I went to Guatemala for the first time, and I really felt this pull towards Guatemala and this connection to Guatemala. And I knew that Guatemala was special. I knew that it would have a big part of my future. I didn't really know any more than that. I just knew that Guatemala meant something to me. And I went back the next year for a missions trip, and then the year after that there was an opportunity to do an internship through our church, and I knew that I needed to go there.
Excuse the noise, we're in the boonies.
Yes, we're in Michigan.
Sorry.
I knew that I needed to do the internship. I knew that I needed to go back, and I knew that the Lord was going to speak to me. And that I just needed to be open and available to whatever it was that He was going to tell me. And so obviously doing the internship, I needed to take a semester off of school, and which I did. And after I told my advisor that I wasn't going to be coming back for this semester, I felt that college was going to be no more for me, that I was to end it. And I felt that so strongly, and I was like, okay, so I'm not going to go back to school, and I know that I need to go to Guatemala. And you know, I was at that point, I was just open to whatever, and my ears were open, you know, to hear from the Lord. So I went to Guatemala, and I had this desire to be a missionary. I was there for 6 months, and after a few months I was like, oh, I really want to be here forever. And I had this desire within me, and I was so worried that it was my own, you know, desire, wanting to be a missionary and not actually the Lord's will for me. So I remember just kind of freaking out over that and almost obsessing over praying, Lord, is this your will for me? Is this what you want for me? Because this is a huge decision. This is like my whole life. I'm not just gonna give up everything and live here if it's not your will. And so I remember praying, Lord, give me a sign. If this is your will, just let me know if this is what you want me to do.
Speak to me audibly.
Send something down from heaven.
Fire.
Send your fire. No, I desperately wanted to know that it was the Lord speaking. So, and I remember after that, I felt I need to stop seeking a sign. I need to stop actually praying this, Lord, let me know if this is your will. I need to just relax. I need to spend time with Him. I need to get into the secret place, get into my Bible, read the Word, spend time praising Him, and just focusing on Him and not is this your calling for me or is it not? And once I actually started doing that, within a couple weeks, that's when he spoke to me.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is it. This is the Lord's will.
Did he
This
speak
is-
to you through peace? Like,
Yeah, it was this internal, like, witness. It was like this overwhelming, yes, this is what
this is it.
this is what I want you to do. And it just took me quieting myself before the Lord and getting into his presence and abiding in him and staying connected to him. And that really was the key. And I feel like if you are abiding with Christ and you are focusing on him, he will reveal his will to you automatically. You don't need to seek a sign and stress yourself out,
Right.
like begging him if it's his will. You just have to just abide in him.
Right.
Yep.
And you know,
I think that's something that like we all really tend to do is just like we're constantly like worrying and like, Lord, what's next? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's your will? And in John 15, this is like one of my like all-time favorite scriptures where Jesus is like talking about how he's the vine and we're the branches and how we're to abide in him. And I always like to think of the picture of like the vine and the branches. Like, you don't look at the branch and the branch isn't like struggling to like pop out fruit. Like, all the branch does is stay connected to the vine, which is Jesus. And then like from that, like the branch gets nourishment and it's healthy, and then that's when the fruit
Flourishes.
that's when it grows. So it's like, and he also says too, like, apart from me you can do nothing. So really, if we're not like actively pursuing like to abide in Jesus, like we literally can do nothing. It's just going to be all like our ideas, our desires, like our own strength. And so like you said, that is just like the ultimate key. Just abide in Jesus, stay connected, always be vitally connected to him, and then you will, like, he'll reveal his will to you.
Right, you'll know his will.
That's right.
And just like scripturally speaking, if you're just, you know, walking throughout your life and you're like, okay, what is the will of God? Like, as a believer, like as the body of Christ, as like for the church as a whole. In 1 Thessalonians 5, it states what the will of God is for a believer. So I'm going to read it to you. It's 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 16 through 22. It says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Do not quench his spirit, do not despise prophecies, but test everything, hold fast what is good, abstain every form of evil. And then it goes to talk about sanctification. But so the will of God in every believer's life would daily be to live with joy, to pray without ceasing, and to thank him continually. And if you're doing those three things, you're not going to be overthinking the will of God or questioning what is it he has for me. Like, you're just going to be walking that out and walking out like a relationship fully in him.
You're in peace because
When
you're
you're
focused
Yep.
on him. When you're praising him, you're not focused on what's happening around you. You're focused only on him. That's good.
So just in closing, we if you guys are to take anything away from this, it's just to always keep your focus on Jesus. When we stay connected to him and we're actively pursuing a relationship with him, having an attitude of
obeying him.
It's like little steps of obedience. Is like Stephanie, like her testimony isn't like one big act of obedience. It was like little steps of obedience, you know, slowly figuring out the Lord's will for her life. So just be encouraged by that. Like, everyone's story is different, but we know, like Caitlin said, as a believer, like keeping an attitude of praise, abiding, being joyful, and praying continually, like that's the will of God for every believer. So we just want to thank Stephanie. We're so glad that she's here, that she could be here for our first guest speaker, I guess.
I know, it was fun. Stay connected, y'all.
Yeah.
Stay connected
Love you.
to the vine.
Bye.
Bye.